Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik with Figure It Out Productions. The following video is part of our Quick Shoot series.
Hey guys, it's Adam here, and if you're watching this the day it came out, it is November 22nd, 2015, which means two things. One, that this is the 2-year anniversary of the Xbox One, of course this particular console, and that's what we're going to be here to talk about today. I've already done videos on the 2-year anniversary of the PlayStation 4, as well as the 3-year anniversary of the Wii U. I'm simply going in calendar order. Basically, all I'm going to do is talk about what the last year has been like, some of my predictions for the next year, you know, things like some of the games, you know, that kind of stuff. And the other thing to acknowledge, though, real quickly, even though it isn't totally relevant, it's just fucking cool, is November 22nd, 2015 is also the 10-year anniversary of the Xbox 360. Wow. That's genuinely really hard to believe. I mean, I remember camping out for that thing at a Toys R Us in the cold and all that shit. I remember doing that. It doesn't feel 10 years ago, man. I'm getting old, man. Oh well. I just want to say kudos to Microsoft for that. It's amazing that console's still around. It's still at least somewhat relevant. And I don't know, because I'm recording this video before November 22nd, but I don't know if they did anything special to celebrate the anniversary. At the time I looked into it, they had no plans, so I don't know. But for all I know, this morning they announced something amazing, and I haven't heard of it yet, so we'll see. But anyway, that's just cool. Now, since we're on the topic of the 360, I think that's the most important thing to bring up when talking about the Xbox One. The big surprise of the year was that it is now compatible with Xbox 360 games. To an extent. So they announced that at E3 2015, and that was a bombshell. People have been asking about that for a long time, myself included, but we never really thought that would happen. But lo and behold, Microsoft did it. Now, it doesn't work exactly the way that I would want it to, but there might be a reason for that. It could be a technical limitation. So basically the way it works is, it kind of works the way that original Xbox backwards compatibility happened on the 360. The hardware can't play it. It's not built in there, so they build an emulator inside the console. And then the console becomes compatible with certain titles, not all of them, and then over time they update it so that new titles can work with the console, which is fine. But one real key difference here is that the Xbox 360 was capable of playing original Xbox games off of the disc. It didn't do what the Xbox One does, which is when you have a game, let's take, for example, I got Lego Star Wars The Complete Saga. This title is backwards compatible now with the Xbox One. So when I put the disc in, it will read the disc and just detect what game it is. That's all it does. And at that point, it then goes into the cloud and it downloads some basically pre-built version of the game for the Xbox One and puts that on the console, and you play that. And then from there on out, when you want to play that, you play the game off the hard drive, and you simply use this as a disc to, basically as a CD unlock key. Very similar to the way actual Xbox One games work. But one key difference is, with actual Xbox One games, you put the disc in there, it basically rips all the data off of the disc and stores it on the hard drive. With this, I think there might be a technical reason it can't do that. Or perhaps, I mean, I'm not an engineer. I am not a programmer, so I don't know this. But I'm guessing there's some reason that's simply not possible. So what it sounds like they did was they basically went into the source code of a lot of these games. I won't say they rewrote them for Xbox One, because that wouldn't be accurate. They did build emulators, but I think they made it like one universal version that's much more compatible, and then didn't have to rely on the actual discs. I don't know. Someone out there I'm sure knows better. You can feel free to correct me, but all we know is it doesn't play off the disc, which is not a good long-term thing, because eventually those servers will go down and those games won't work anymore. Or the ones that you have on there will work fine until the console dies, but you'll never be able to reacquire them. That kind of thing. But I can't be really that mad at them or anything like that, because it's a free bonus feature that really makes the console cooler. So I already have it. I have a bunch of 360s. It's not like I'm really missing out, but it is definitely cool they did that, and I like that because when I did the video last year, I made a bunch of suggestions for the Xbox One, along with the other platforms, of course. And if I had to issue a Most Improved Player award, it would definitely be to the Xbox One, because the other, in the case of the PlayStation 4, they really didn't do much of anything I suggested, nor should they. They have no reason to watch my video. Same thing with Nintendo. They did nothing I suggested in regards to the Wii U. I, again, don't blame them. Why should they? They have no reason to watch the video. I'm sure Microsoft never saw my Xbox One video last year, but they really, since they brought Phil Spencer in, they actually followed almost everything I said. Basically, my hyper-focus was try to get backwards compatibility in there. I was actually talking about original Xbox backwards compatibility. I didn't think 360 would actually happen. I also talked about focusing a lot more on exclusive content and do a lot more to just appeal to core gamers, become game-centric the way the 360 was originally. And under Phil Spencer, they've done that. Because we all know at this point, it's ancient history essentially at this point, that when the console was first announced, it was a debacle. It was that DRM piece of shit that was mostly focused on TV and sports, and it really didn't care that much about the games, had inferior versions of games, and was going to be Kinect-centric. Terrible, terrible, terrible idea. Now, that was all under the horrible Don Matrick era. Since they brought Phil Spencer in, he pretty much reversed all that shit. Obviously they reversed DRM stuff very quickly, and they started focusing more on games. There's only so much they can do to get around the hardware limitations of the console as compared to their primary competition, the PlayStation 4. But that's one of the things they did so brilliantly, is they understand fully that Sony quite simply cannot integrate PlayStation 3 backwards compatibility into the PlayStation 4, short of doing what I just kind of talked about before, where you take the game and you basically rebuild it from the source code and then just have everybody download it directly. But I don't think that Sony would ever do that. I don't think they're in a financial position to do that, or they are interested in doing that, because it would be a pain in the ass for them. PlayStation 3 hardware is incredibly different than PlayStation 4 hardware, whereas 360 hardware is certainly different, but it's not the extensive pain in the ass that the PlayStation 3 would be. So my guess is backwards compatibility will never come there. So why does that matter? Because Microsoft was smart enough to turn this into a weapon, which is amazing. So when I say that, I mean, throughout history, backwards compatibility has existed in various consoles and was always seen as more of a bonus feature. For example, the PlayStation 2 was able to play PS1 games, which was very, very cool. The Dreamcast couldn't play Saturn games. The GameCube couldn't play N64 games. The Xbox, well, there was no previous Microsoft title or console, but it couldn't play anything like that. So it was an advantage, but it wasn't really a marketing push so much at a certain point. With this, though, they're using it aggressively to be able to be like, hey, look, we understand that when you pick up Fallout 4, the PS4 version's probably going to be a little better. We get it, it's going to have slightly higher resolution, but you know what? If you pick up Fallout 4 on the Xbox One, we're going to give you a free digital copy of Fallout 3. Does that sound enticing to you? I really think using that as a marketing weapon is smart. Really, really smart. And we'll have to see how that plays out. I think that could actually, I'm not going to say they can win the generation, because I really legitimately don't think they can, but I do think that can help them become a hell of a lot more relevant in North America and Europe. Japan's a lost cause, you'll never win there. But it is possible that you can catch up in those two other markets. On the subject of backwards compatibility a little bit more, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I'm going to bring it up because this pissed me off and I wanted to make sure people know about it. So when it comes to DLC on this thing with 360 stuff, if you bought it digitally, your DLC should appear there unless that DLC happens to no longer exist on Xbox Live, as is the case with some titles, by the way. That does happen. For example, we got Fallout 3 Game of the Year Edition here. Now, the way this worked was that you had two discs. You had the game disc, and then you had a second disc that had all the DLC on it. Now, I was concerned that it would play the game disc, but it wouldn't allow me to use the bonus content disc. To their credit, the bonus content disc works. You pop it in and basically detects, oh, you got Fallout 3 Game of the Year Edition, so it just downloads the game plus all the DLC, which is really cool. So I was very happy to find that out. But then again, I shouldn't be too surprised because I know Bethesda worked very close with them in regards to Fallout for reasons previously explained. Fallout 3 comes with Fallout 4 on the Xbox One. But then I thought, okay, well, there's another game that does this. I picked this up specifically to test this, so I hope you appreciate this. I got Borderlands Game of the Year Edition. Now, this is the same basic idea. Game disc plus bonus disc that has all the DLC. Game disc works. Bonus disc with all the DLC doesn't work. I don't know if that's an oversight or if it's just something that's never going to change. I hope that gets fixed. And I hope that gets fixed not just for this game, but like in general as a concept. I would hate for people to get screwed like that. So please be aware, people at 2K, people at Microsoft, this one has a bit of a glitch in it. So hopefully you update it so that it is capable of using the bonus disc. Now, I do want to talk about a few other things. Like I said, they did a lot of things that I thought they should do. One of them was, I had complained a lot about the operating system on this thing since day one. When I first used it, it was an iteration of Windows 8, and even since like the first day, I was convinced they weren't going to stick with that they were going to upgrade it, because that's what they did with the 360 all the time. But I kept thinking they'll upgrade it to be more like the next iteration of Windows, which we now know as Windows 10, and that's exactly what they did. That's just happened at the time I make this video. The Windows 10, I like the menu a lot better than I like the Windows 8 iteration. It's not perfect, it's not the best, but I do like it a lot better, so I'm glad they improved that, but there's always more room for continued improvement in that regard. Another thing I kept talking about a lot was that they needed to focus a lot more on exclusive titles, and again, Phil Spencer to the rescue. He's been saying that in a lot of interviews lately, was that they want to focus more on their own in-house exclusive content. Like they'll always be happy to have the third-party titles, and in regards to third-party titles, they're going to do what they can to kind of blend them with some 360 backwards compatible titles to help make them more valuable. But they want to focus a lot more on exclusive content to give people more of a worthwhile reason to look into getting an Xbox One. Applause all around. That is exactly what they need to do. So I don't even have any criticisms there. I do want to talk about some other stuff that I've been dying to talk to you guys about, though. So, funny thing in regards to backwards compatibility, because I keep coming back around to this because it's just an amazing thing. So, back in, it was fall of 2014, I went to Pax Prime in Seattle, Washington. I had the opportunity to do a very brief interview with Major Nelson. And I basically got to ask him like 2 questions. And the question I primarily focused on was, what are the odds that the Xbox One will ever become backwards compatible with original Xbox games? And I told you this exact same story last year. The short version is, he didn't know what I was asking him. He thought I was talking about 360, and he said, that'll never happen, the 360, you don't understand what you're asking, it's technically impossible. Which is funny now, obviously, in hindsight. But once he understood what I was saying, that I meant the original Xbox, he just kind of looked at me and was like he had befuddled, total befuddlement. He had never been asked that question before, I don't think, based on the look on his face. And he just said, no, we are not doing that. That's what he said. I accepted that answer because I figured that's probably accurate. They probably have no real reason to do that. Now fast forward to summer of 2015, and Xbox 360 backwards compatibility is announced. So a lot of people have backwards compatibility on the mind, and someone asks Phil Spencer the same exact question. How about original Xbox backwards compatibility? What do you think? And he basically said something to the effect of, you know, we want to do it, it would be cool, but that's about it. Like they like the idea, they're open to it, it's not a stupid question, but there's nothing really happening there. So now, again, fast forward to PAX Prime 2015. This is what I've been waiting to tell you guys. So I was granted a meeting with some people who work at Microsoft, specifically, of course, in the Xbox division. And I got to ask a few various questions that I was specifically saving for this video. So one of the questions I asked was, of course, about original Xbox backwards compatibility. I was kind of riding the coattails because now that, you know, that guy had asked the question, it was more of a story that was out there. Of course, 360 compatibility was out there. I wanted to see what the odds are that they were pushing this. And what I was basically told was, look, we want to do it. We want to put original backwards compatibility into the Xbox One. That is definitely something we're interested in doing. We want that to happen. But, as he put it, all the guys who would be doing that project are working on 360 compatibility. And quite honestly, there is no dispute which one of those gets to win in that contest. 360 compatibility is far more marketably viable to the Xbox One than original Xbox backwards compatibility. So he basically said, like, if the opportunity presents itself, it will probably happen, but there's no promises that that will happen. I then, said, hey, just think about this. Next year is 2016. It's the 15th anniversary of the original Xbox. Just saying, just saying. Then we joked about an original Xbox, or an Xbox One that looks like an original Xbox, painted. So if that happens, you're welcome. Who knows? That could happen. Like I said, this is the 10th anniversary and we just got Xbox 360 compatibility. We could see original Xbox backwards compatibility next year. Though there's no guarantee that'll happen. It's just one of those things where I talked about it and they seemed interested, but as far as I know, there's 0 people working on it. That's what he said. He said there's no one actually working on it, but it's something they want to do. So I was also able to ask him a few other questions. And one of them was about the idea of a slim version of the console, like, is that going to happen? And currently there are no plans to do that. It doesn't sound like that's going to change anytime soon. The primary reason being that the Xbox 360, they're still plagued by the red rings of death that hit them on the 360. The Xbox One, despite not being the most particularly attractive console, is very reliable. It keeps itself cool. It doesn't have problems running, really. And they're more interested in having it work than having it look aesthetically pleasing. So that's where they kind of seem to stand with that. That could certainly change over time. We'll see. I don't know, obviously. Because the other thing I mentioned was that I would really love the ability to change out the internal hard drive. I basically brought up that my PlayStation 4, I was able to put an SSD in it. So the performance is substantially better than a standard PlayStation 4. I have no doubt that if you were able to put an SSD into an Xbox One, the performance would massively improve. And their position was that, we gave you external support, which I wholly appreciate. I want both consoles to do both. I want to have the option to change the internal drive and have external storage. I want both. Their position on it was that they have no current plans to do that either, but, who knows. But it is worth noting now that they are going to be releasing the Xbox 360 Elite, or not, Xbox One Elite, which will come with that new Elite controller, as well as an SSHD. They're taking out the standard stock hard drive and putting an SSHD, which is like halfway between an SSD and a regular hard drive. So the performance will be a lot better, but not as good as it would be with an SSD. We will see. Over time, it's quite possible they will simply replace all of the standard drives with SSHD drives. We'll see. Because that would be one of the few areas of the hardware where they could actually improve it. Because people underestimate, man, when you put a good hard drive in something, not only do you get better, size, like stock storage capacity, but you can really drastically improve the speed and performance of a device. So we'll see. That could be something that they do. Don't know that, of course. Then the only other stuff we talked about was basically like physical media versus digital. Like how long are they going to keep sticking with physical media, because I'm a big physical media guy. And it was funny because everyone I asked said they were all big physical media guys, but unfortunately as a corporation they're going the other way. They're focusing more on digital, which makes me sad, so enjoy it while you can, I suppose. So I guess it's interesting because I don't have too many, shall we say, predictions, other than I do think the Xbox One is probably going to do a hell of a lot better in 2016 than it did last year, or 2015, because backwards compatibility, I really do think, is going to make a big difference. I do think the fact that they're going to focus a lot more on exclusive titles, in-house exclusive titles, as opposed to what was specifically referred to as, they didn't really like how Rise of the Tomb Raider went down. That's an Xbox One exclusive, at least temporarily. That was they kind of learned a lesson from that. Yes, that was a big game. They wanted it as an exclusive, but doing it in the manner they did only meant it was a timed exclusive. It cost them a lot to make that happen, and in the end, it's not really worth it to them because it is coming to their competition, so people are just choosing to wait it out. And they got a lot of negative press for it. So their next plan seems to be doing a lot of in-house stuff, and at the same time, if you want third parties to make exclusive content, you can't pick those particular type of games that started off as big, multi-plat titles. You have to commission them specifically to make new IPs, basically, that are exclusive. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see more of that over the course of the next year. But yeah, man, I mean, that's, as far as predictions, there's not really much else to say. I think they're going to have a good year. I don't think they'll catch up, but I do think they're going to kick some ass. And I do think there's going to be a lot of different bundles, especially at the holidays. I think one of the big advantages they've had, at least over the last year, is they've been $50 cheaper than their competition. Now that they no longer have that advantage, I imagine you'll start seeing a lot more free games, especially digital free games, included with Xbox One bundles in an effort to kind of compensate that. We'll see how that plays out. So now I would like to talk to you about some of the games I've got here that I picked up over the course of the last year. Now I must remind you that the Xbox One is neither my favorite console this generation nor my console of choice. It's the other one. Despite how many great things I have to say about it right now, I haven't picked up that many games for it because I only really pick up exclusive titles for it, and there wasn't a whole lot that I got this year. We will, again, I hope that they are smarter about that next year, and it seems like they're going in that direction. So we'll see. We'll see that in a year and we'll talk. But I did bring out a few here just to talk about them for one reason or another. First one I got here is Azeto X something. It's a Japanese exclusive game. That's why I picked this up. You guys might have saw it in a video I did a while back. this could end up being the one and only Japanese exclusive Xbox One game. I actually thought there was a second one called Psycho Pass, which I actually did pick up. And of course, I went the same day I did a video on this and Psycho Pass. Someone told me Psycho Pass was just released on PS4 in Japan, so it was no longer an Xbox One exclusive. So this one remains, currently anyway, the only one. And like, I mean, when I mean exclusive, I mean true exclusive. Only released on Xbox One and only in Japan. So for that reason, it was just a little cool thing to pick up, even though it's really not easy to play because of language barrier issues. But fortunately, the Xbox One is region free, so it does actually work. It's just difficult to understand the content of the game. Nevertheless, I picked it up. Now this one is ironic because it's a multi-plat, but I picked it up for the Xbox One for a very specific reason. Saints Row 4 re-elected and Get Out of Hell first edition. Now this game, like I said, was available on the PS4, but the difference was odd. On the Xbox One version, both Saints Row 4 and Get Out of Hell are on the disc together, and you basically just install both. And like a traditional Xbox One game, it just uses this as an unlock key. The PS4 version is a little bit different though. It only has Saints Row 4 on the disc, and then just like a code inside that lets you download Get Out of Hell, which I didn't like because I'm very pro physical content, as you guys know. So for that reason, I picked up this title specifically. Then, of course, there's this game that if I didn't pick this up, I'd have a million people in the comments complaining about it. Halo 5 Guardians. This game, I actually, look, I have nothing against Halo. It's just never been my favorite game franchise. And even just saying what I just said, I already have a bunch of people getting angry at me. I know it, because to this day, I think that's a pretty neutral stance. It's like, yeah, I've got nothing against it, I'm just not madly in love with it, is apparently hatred as far as the context of Halo, which is insane. But, you know, like, I've played it before, it's fine, but, you know, the Halo, but in this one particularly, I didn't have a whole lot of interest in. I just kind of picked it up, you know, really for the sake of having it, but also, it was free. I was given this copy for free, so that was kind of nice. But, yeah, I am looking forward to revisiting Halo. I have to admit that. I haven't really played... when was the last one I actually played all the way through? I think I played Halo 3 all the way through, and that was where I stopped. So I think what I want to do at some point when I find the time is play Halo the Master Chief Collection, specifically the offline stuff, and just kind of replay them all on Xbox One, and then play, of course, the ones I didn't play, and then this. So, and then probably when Halo Reach becomes backwards compatible, that'd be nice. But, yeah, so that's why I got that. Also up, I got State of Decay. I think this was kind of an unsung, basically Xbox One exclusive. It also came out on the PC. Though to be fair to this game, it came out on the PC, I think, way before it came out on the Xbox One. So essentially, the Xbox One got a port of it. And finally, the big one, the one that I enjoyed the most, was Rare Replay. See, here's the thing. I think this is a very worthwhile thing because it was only 30 bucks. And then it became 20. I think you might even be able to get it now for 15 or 10, depending on where you go. So that's really cool. It's got 30 different games on it. A lot of them are really, really awesome, especially things like Conker's Bad Fur Day, which, you know, of course, the original cartridge of is almost impossible to find, etc. Very, very worthwhile investment. However, it is worth noting one big flaw with this game is that it's very digital intensive. Meaning there's a lot of games on here that are essentially just 360 backwards compatible titles that just get digitally downloaded to your hard drive once you put this disc in. So while that doesn't matter right now, like any digital item doesn't really matter right now as long as the servers are functional, one day there will come a time where someone goes to buy this, probably in a used store, pops it into their Xbox One, and it simply will not work. They will only be able to get a handful of the smaller titles that are built into the disc, and all the bigger ones you just can't ever access. That sucks, but hey, it is what it is. So anyway, that's kind of it. That's some of the games. Those are my predictions and thoughts and all that stuff. I hope you guys have enjoyed this series. I hope you checked out the Wii U video as well as the PS4 video. And I guess that's it, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all later.